so. All right, you tell me when. When? Okay. All right, well, thanks everybody for coming to the Elysium Community Class. We're going to talk today about auto insurance. Okay? Look, I'm not an insurance agent. Like, I don't have any relationships with companies. I'm not here to sell you insurance. But I do know a lot about it from my background as a personal injury attorney. I've probably looked at over 1,000 auto insurance policies. And so I just want to give you some basic information so you can learn how to pick a policy that fits your needs and your budget. So most of you, or all of you, may be underinsured and you probably don't know it. And you won't know it until you get into an accident or something happens, and then you learn that, hey, I don't have enough coverage to fit whatever the situation is. And so I'm just going to teach you to understand your policy and what the things mean on your policy. And then you can make better decisions, have a call with your insurance agent. Most of you know me, but I've probably looked at over 1,000 car insurance policies. I've handled over 500 to 1,000, who even knows at this point, auto wreck cases. And so I just wanted to kind of just chat with you, and hopefully my experience will help you make some decisions. Okay.
Go back, yeah. Future president? What is that?
I'm president in 2027 of our trial lawyers.
Don't just glaze over
So, yeah, 2027. I'm currently the treasurer.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, in 2027, I will be the president of the trial lawyers here in Utah.
Wow. For you. That's
So, yeah, it just happened a few months ago. I guess I don't announce this kind of stuff usually. I know.
You should have thrown a party. That's
I know. I don't use I don't post stuff on Facebook. I probably should.
Just tell me and then I'll brag for you.
Okay. Yeah. There you go. Okay. So, we're going to go through kind of what the definitions are in your policy, and I'll tell you what Utah requires, and then you can decide kind of what you might need in the future. So this is not intended. I'm an attorney. This is not intended to be legal advice. I'm not an insurance agent, and none of you are my clients by virtue of this presentation. So I just feel like I always have to give the disclaimer. Okay, so when we're looking at auto insurance policies, there's several different components. We've got the liability injury component. We've got your uninsured and underinsured. We've got what's called PIP. I'm going to call it PIP, but it's personal injury protection. And we've got property damage, and then either collision or comprehensive. So we'll go through all of those. You'll know what everything means. You'll be an auto insurance expert by the end of this presentation. Okay, so liability or bodily injury coverage is covers you when you cause an accident or you hit somebody, you're at fault. Okay? It is mandatory in Utah to have this coverage. It covers the other party's injuries, lost wages, medical expenses, etc. In Utah, the minimum that you have to carry in liability is $25,000, and that's per person injured in the accident, with an aggregate of $65,000. So your policy, like if you hit a person or a vehicle and they have 4 people in the car, each one of them could get up to $25,000, but no more as a total of $65,000. And that's just till the end of 2024. Beginning 2025, it's $30.65, and I will tell you that we, the trial lawyers, have been fighting for years to get the legislature to raise the limits, raise the mandatory limits, and this is what we could get. And this is something we fight every year at the legislature. We're going to keep fighting. So when you cause an accident or somebody driving your car with permission, a college student in your house that may live away from home. So I don't know, if when I was a college student, I was on my parents' policy, and so their policy would have covered me if I, did something away from the home. So underinsured and uninsured is UMUIM. This coverage is very important. It protects you if you're hit by a driver who has no insurance, and that does happen, actually not infrequently. or they don't have enough liability coverage. So let's say you get hit by somebody and you break your femur, and they only have $25,000 in auto insurance. You know, that's a $250,000 to $750,000 claim for that type of injury. And so this is important coverage. You can waive it in Utah. It's kind of hard to do it. You have to sign a waiver, and it has to be explained to you like what you're actually waiving. So people do waive it, but it hardly costs anything to have it. Like when you have a policy, like the cost of this is pretty minimal when looking at the total cost of the policy. So your underinsured or uninsured coverage will not exceed the limits of your own liability. So if you have a minimum policy of $25,000, you can't have more than $25,000 for UM or UIM. Okay, so it's gonna pair with whatever your liability is. It covers the same people. And the nice thing about these policies is you can actually stack them sometimes. So if I'm riding in Caitlin's car and we get somebody with no insurance hits us, I can claim coverage under her policy and my own policy. So in Utah, you can stack these. Okay, PIP. It's called no-fault insurance, and it applies anytime you get in an accident, whether you cause it or somebody else causes it. This is also mandatory in Utah. It covers everybody in the vehicle. So if I am with Caitlin and we get in an accident, I can use her PIP and then I can use my PIP. And this will pay my medical expenses. I've had clients, sometimes you can use it for like massages, stuff like that. So again, it's mandatory. They're not supposed to raise your rates when you use it. I have seen companies do that, but they're not supposed to. So in Utah, it's $3,000 minimum for medical expenses. And so all of your policies will have at least $3,000 in PIP. If you've chosen to raise it, then you may have more. I've raised mine to the most that my company offers. And I think it was like an extra 50 cents a month. So I have $16,000 in PIP. And I got in an accident 3 or 4 years ago, and I used all of it.
Can you just like send us what your policy is?
Yeah. So I do have the max policy that a commercial or that a non-commercial company will offer, but we'll talk about that in a second. And I went the other day, and I went and like dropped down to the minimum to see like what the changes were, and so we'll get there in a second. So it also covers these other things. These are the minimums in Utah. So let's say I get in an accident and my mom has to come over and do my laundry. I can get $20 a day for that. Okay. The wage loss is not great, but it's something. And then these other benefits. Okay, so property damage, this covers if you damage somebody else's property with your car. And it's the minimum is $15,000. Again, that is really low. It may, like if you hit my car, like that wouldn't cover it. You know, don't go hit Carson's car if you have this policy, okay? Okay, collision. This helps pay to repair or replace your vehicle if you collide with like an object, a tree, a fence. Like one time I was backing up in like the mall parking lot, and they have those posts, and I ripped off my side mirror. So that's, if you have a financed vehicle, it's gonna be required. Okay, comprehensive. Anybody heard of this? Comprehensive, okay. This is optional, but it protects, like if, let's say there's, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago there was a hailstorm out here, and it damaged a lot of the vehicles in the parking lot. If you guys remember Jenna's old car, it had all of those welts in it from the hail. Okay, this is the type of thing that this comprehensive would cover, okay? Theft, vandalism, glass, fire, like a deer strike, things like that. For some reason, potholes are usually not covered. And if somebody breaks into your car, the comprehensive will cover like the glass, but they won't cover the theft of your personal items. Your homeowners or renters insurance is where you need to claim if your stuff is stolen out of your car, okay? All right.
I'm looking at mine right now, and
Yeah.
it says auto comprehensive insurance, and then what we pay, and then underneath that says limits, and it says actual cash value. Does that mean like whatever it's valued at, that's just what the insurance pays?
Yeah, so that's what, usually when they're valuing like the damage for like your car, it's gonna be, they're gonna look and find like listings of similar vehicles and like average prices. So insurance companies, I don't think ever pay enough for property damage because of the way they value it, but there are some, well, we'll get to optional stuff in a minute. Okay, so when you're deciding like what to purchase, like these are some factors that you may want to look at. So obviously, like your state laws require what they require. Anybody who sells a policy in Utah, if you're using like a mainstream company, is going to comply with Utah law. If your vehicle is financed, that's something to think about. Do you have assets that if you cause a big accident, can somebody come after your personal assets if you don't have enough coverage? How much do you drive? So when you're getting insurance, and I went and got a quote the other day just to like remember like what kind of stuff they ask. So if you're using your car for like just like running errands, they're not gonna, it's like a lower risk for an insurance company. But when you're commuting, or if you're using your car for work, then it's a different consideration like in your rates because you're more likely to have something happen. Where do you park? And people who drive for Uber and Lyft, this is an entirely different consideration. And when you're getting a policy, you do need to make sure you get coverage for, make sure that they know that you're driving for Uber and Lyft because Uber and Lyft have their own policies, and they're not bad policies actually, but you need coverage for when you're like waiting to accept a ride or in between rides and things like that because your insurance, unless you've set it up with them, may not necessarily cover, okay? Something to think about is can I afford to be injured by an uninsured, underinsured driver? I'm seeing a lot of ER visits that are, $10,000 to $15,000 just for an ER visit from an accident because of CT scans and MRIs and things. Think about, what if I'm in an accident and I'm out of work for an extended period? What happens if you injure somebody in an accident and you don't have enough coverage to cover their bills? Even good drivers can cause accidents, like it happens. We've all done it. What if your car is totaled and the property damage policy is less than you owe on your car? So hopefully if you have a financed car, you all have gap insurance, which covers the gap from what you get. It'll pay the remainder. Some policies also offer a like 20% bump on cash value. So what Cody was talking about, some policies you can elect an option to pay more than whatever the cash value is. Okay, so there's also all sorts of optional coverage, collision comprehensives. Collision may be mandatory by your finance company, it just depends. Towing and labor. So a lot of auto insurance companies cover that. If you have AAA, then you may not need this. Some dealers too offer towing and labor, but this would also be like if you run out of gas and they need to bring you gas or something or change your tire on the freeway. Roadside assistance, additional PIP we talked about. So rental car and loss of use. This is something that frustrates a lot of my clients, is when they're in an accident and the person who hits them doesn't have rental or loss of use, and then they have to claim it on their own policy and they don't realize that they actually don't have very much coverage while they're waiting to get a new car or get their car fixed. It can be really inconvenient to not have your car for a couple weeks. When I had my accident in 2020, I got rear-ended and it was like $9,000 of damage to my brand new car. And it took them like 2 weeks because they had to completely repair the back lift gate. And I was it was covered thankfully because of my policy, but it was kind of annoying. So, that's something to think about is the inconvenience of being underinsured. UIM. If you take one thing away from here today, is do not waive UIM. That would be my number one takeaway. Accident forgiveness. I mean, this isn't really insurance, but some companies offer that if you cause an accident, they'll wipe it clean from your rates, after a certain number of time. Some companies will offer like a vehicle replacement, and then umbrella policies. So sometimes, like, you can get a certain amount of auto coverage, and you may want an umbrella policy to cover like anything else. So let's say you cause some kind of catastrophe, and you have your insurance pays out, but then you also have an umbrella policy which can cover any additional. I got a quote from my insurance company that $1 million of umbrella coverage is $11 a month. And I didn't have it, and I'm like, I don't know why I don't have it. I'm just gonna get it. So, you may want to look and see what your coverages are, but if you have a 25-65 policy, please consider raising it to a minimum of 100-300. And I don't believe, unless you have a catastrophic driving record and like tons of DUIs or something, like it's probably not going to cost you a ton unless you've had like tons of claims in the past. Again, like what I'm seeing is like, $1 or $2 a month, to raise limits. And again, whatever you raise your liability limits to, your UM and UIM will also come up to the same limit. Your rate shouldn't increase if you make a PIP claim. Again, if you have the option for additional PIP on your policy, like I'm really glad that I had so much PIP when I had my accident, because I didn't end up paying like hardly anything out of pocket. And again, check the cost of umbrella coverage. I was surprised by that much coverage was only $11 a month. I put this as good, better, best, but really good should be okay. Like that's okay. Ideally, everybody would have at least 250 in liability coverage and UIM. I think if you have the option and it works with your budget, I'd consider taking a look at all the additional coverages. So I upped mine ever since I started doing car wreck cases. I upped mine so I've got a 1 million policy. So if I hit somebody, I could pay up to 1 million. If I get hit, I could get up to 1 million on my own policy.
What's like a realistic difference in price between?
It just depends, again, like on your record, your history. Insurance companies use what's called like a credit-informed score. So they don't necessarily pull your credit, but they do get a score from like LexisNexis that looks to see if you have like any major red flags. And so that's part of how they determine your rate, plus like with your if you have points on your license or things like that. So my guess is for the people in this room that it's not going to be substantially more expensive. Again, some companies are better than others. Like I have some favorites and I have some not favorites. On my end, when it's, I know some who are like a little more difficult to work with. I'm not going to say that on the live stream, who they are on the live stream, but you can ask me after. Any questions? Yeah.
How does the medical insurance work with the PIP?
Good. That is a really good question. So before you can use your medical insurance in an accident, you have to exhaust your PIP. Okay, so PIP is going to be the primary payer. And that's actually a good thing because, it's nice to be able to have, if you can, have everything paid. But when you get in an accident, you're going to get a form from your health insurance company, and you may get it from the hospital or doctor's office. And it's going to ask you if you were in an accident. Don't ignore these forms. Fill them out, because your health insurance will not start paying until you provide them what's called a PIP log, which is the log of payments, and a PIP exhaust letter from the insurance company. So as part of my practice, I provide these to, I get these and I send them to my clients to give to their health insurance company, to give to the hospital, so the health insurance starts processing claims. And sometimes they'll deny claims once or twice because they don't have the information, and that's okay. They'll eventually kick in and pay, but sometimes you just have to keep giving them the documents, sometimes more than once. But yes, PIP has to be exhausted. Any other questions?
I have off the record questions.
Sure. Any more on the record questions? All right, we good? Well, thanks everybody for coming to my talk. This is my info. If you want, any of you can bring your policies to me and I'll go over them with you. So I'm happy to just print out, we call it a deck page, but you can print out a deck page of your policy. If you want to come find me in my office, I'm happy to review them with you and give you my input. And we've got these upcoming classes. I'm looking forward to these. I didn't realize that these were live streamed. And so when I'm out of town on a couple of these, I'll be able to watch them. Thanks. And cut.